Kayla King, and welcome back to my channel. Or if you're new, welcome. To help celebrate International Women's Day, I've brought together several of the self-identifying women who were contributors for my collective, the Elpis Pages, at the end of 2021, and they're going to be sharing some of their stories, poems, essays, and more with you today. If you haven't been following along, I started the Elpis Pages as a means to bring the voices of self-identifying women together to take a stand against the events that happened in Texas, September 2021. I wanted to bring a platform for these individuals to share their experience and their words about womanhood, whatever that meant to them. I'm still inspired by the bravery and courage that was shown by these individuals as they allowed me to share their words with the world. Since publication in December 2021, we have sold almost $500 worth of books, and every proceed from this publication will be donated to the Planned Parenthood Action Fund, an organization which supports safe legal access to abortion and reproductive rights. The Elpis Pages celebrates work created by and about women. Long ago, Pandora's box opened to reveal a multitude of evils. Only hope was left behind. Her name was Elpis. As we find ourselves in tumultuous and uncertain times, the thing we must cling to now more than ever is hope. Bringing together poetry, short stories, flash fiction, novel excerpts, essays, and more from self-identifying women around the world, these pages explore the nuanced complexity of womanhood. Whether it be a howl or whisper, these women are using their voices however they can. Sometimes all we have is hope. The art of making eye contact. There was beauty in the savage sectioning of pinion from wing, if only to preserve perfection behind glass. But I won't tell you this, because your feathers take more than one color to cloak in coal. I'm not sure what that says about shadows, but it must predict some profundity. If he were here with me now, he'd ask the same riddle again and again, because he understood your flight patterns. But my obsession with the writing desk was never quite clear. Suppose it's the way it works with an insatiable curiosity, which I recited before bed like a promise, never prayer. Alas, he's not here anymore. And now I try not to count your unkindness, but it's too late. There's two of your brethren, plus you, together the half of a favorite, a token of time passing. I could break you down and build you up in so many mythological renderings. But maybe that's why math never treated me right. I was always searching for the story in those numerals. I wander toward the other two first, a Nordic truth held between them like the thought and the memory of the old gods. Should I ask them for a sign now? Would they leave only you? Because one must be a sure omen of death, though this isn't one of those dreams where I die because I don't taste time, and minutes move like any other. There is the crack of my knee as I bend to you. I await your transition into berserk, break of beak to the sky, shrieks to sound like morning songs. I know them well, but I don't imagine them too personally, for fear I'll bring the fate of dying upon my shoulders. The other ravens answer from the trees, but I pay no mind. It's the way you eat the egg with eximious ease which stills me instead. I expect a splatter, but you swallow the bright blue back like it's nothing. I ask a question and wait for a response. No way to know if the shape will sit in your gullet forever. Why can't you answer? Silence exhausts far too often because too much has already been said, and all at once you resemble my mother. You do not speak of curses then, rubbing circles between shoulder blades, waiting for me to become winged and wretched as all girls must. You've never been one to miss the mirage of forgetting, to think and think without leaving a trace of any thrasonical promises. It's not safe to say small half-truths with blood pooling beneath this backyard tree. We're trapped here now, flash of old, a father, a hammer, quietness not unlike the sound of lying. There's nothing subtle beyond the front door. Girls perched inside on velvet chairs like birds in cages, too tame to know they can leave now. Hear them beyond the yard. Listen to the mellifluous meter of meaning mouthed into the matted grass below. Do not pretend to portend anything past this nothing and nothing. We were young once too. It's how this should end, but it won't. This is not our place to tell these girls of realness, and they'll find lips to bite, other birds to make them believe they might one day be mothers.
Hello, I'm Margaret Koger, and I'll be reading Summer Apples. The power of spring sunlight warmed the lips of twigs, formed buds, unfolded blossoms, itching for bees to spread gold lamé on their stigmas. Pollen carrying sperm down tubes to ovules, as in so many female buds. Surrounded by sheltering leaves, ripened apples invite our teeth to bite into their crisp flesh, a tart dance on the tongue. Summer apples, meant to replace barrels of root cellar has-beens, only not quite, because the new girls arrived before the berries were done. We pick a few, bake pies, leave the rest to tumble into weeds where they'll be gathered to feed the hogs. Some year there'll be a free-for-all, boys flinging their ardent desires at sidestepping girls, or so I imagine. I see the hogs, the trees, and me, as if I too were a giggly dancer, dodging apples, hoping for a suitor to come and court me, or else the fruits of my body will be lost, left to rot, to brown in the sun, bees drunk on abandoned sugars.
Old Way Open. This begins cracked and shucked clean of feeling, and they will tell you not to write about such things, about yourself as a thing from memory. Yet, time still moves, and you won't hold a child to the sticks because there will be no children. Eat away at chaos you can't control. You are not the universe, but you hold a bit of it inside. They check for a new cosmos amidst black holes hungry for filling. Starched gown unlike feathers, surround metallic beak to break open. It's the way of an oyster, sound a song only sirens sing, to seek something other than love. They do not understand how they survive, the nape, the vague, the breast, the bone. You don't wear flower crowns, but your hair is a nest, and your mind is a wild shudder, still starved. The strange lie will find you in a painting strung up in a room, in a hospital, in a home, because there was beauty born from brutal taking. But do not trace the skin of the shell shattered from a lost archetype, destroyed for its deceit of that one word you refuse to use. You'll become nothing but a myth, a hiss to forget, forget, forget.
The Wombing by Amanda Hurley, an excerpt. When the overseer prodded her with a stick, Margaret realized the shackles on her ankles had already been removed. Hesitantly, she began to climb the steps to the stage, fighting a desire to clasp her hands over her ears as the shouts of the gathered men became even louder. The auctioneer took a step toward her, a look of pure greed on his face, mentally calculating the profit Margaret could bring him. She stopped just out of reach and turned to face the crowd. A selection of faces emerged, a man with a shaggy beard, broken teeth set in his jeering mouth, another with cheeks blistered from the cobalt mines, a faint blue tinge to his skin. And next to him a harder face, richly handsome with cold, sober eyes. His gaze trapped her on stage as if every other person present had suddenly vanished. Even after the auctioneer took her arm, Margaret still felt ensnared by the man's stare. A fine young specimen gentleman, the auctioneer called, fumbling at Margaret's dress. These pretty udders will certainly attract a pretty penny. Who'll start the bidding? Margaret stood exposed on the stage. A jumble of voices shouted, each with a better offer than the last. Finally, a cold, clear voice rang out, trumping the bids. 5,500 for the maid. Instinct identified that voice, and Margaret knew it belonged to the man who had seized it in his line of sight minutes before. Gasps of surprise echoed around the market square. Margaret winced as the auctioneer's gavel hit his desk. Sold. Congratulations, Mr. Garvey. Only the best for you, sir. At the bottom of the steps, the coach pulled up with a jangle of reins. Margaret had only a moment to notice the two sleek horses before being pushed roughly inside. She collapsed on the floor, shivering despite the warmth of a soft fur beneath her exposed skin. She knew he was there with her before opening her eyes. Even sitting, he towered over her. Mr. Garvey.
This is We Don't Settle Here. Sometimes I contemplate this existence. What is this body? What is this femininity? What is the flesh that I'm trapped in that limits me? I seem to only write when I'm feeling hazy. Not trying to be lazy, I'm trying not to scream, but all I want to do is scream. Reaching inward for my goddess, for my chalice of rising up and not settling, not hardening. I hope the gods won't forsake me, for finding my solace when my heart is aching. I want to lay myself down in graveyards and feel the earth swallow me. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. But deep down, I know that I've got to keep fighting. I've got to keep trying. I've got to keep on. I've got to keep on. I've got to. I can't let the world take my goodness. I'm trying so hard to hang on. I'm not forsaken. I am strong. I am good. I'm okay. I'll get through this just like any other day. Take my dramatic life and show me what paradise looks like. 3, 2, 1, I count backwards. My body is formed from pain. We as women know so much pain. So what do we do with it? We take it, we channel it, we make it the very artwork that we are. We burn our incense and sing our songs and keep on going amidst our grief, our physicality, our loyalty, our spirituality. I cannot speak for you, but I can hold your hand as you rise. We can walk each other along the paths of finding. We don't settle here. Thank you.
Upheaval was a nice word to think about. The first syllable lifted itself free from the other two. Sometimes it was painful to let it echo in my mind. Other times the word reminded me of my father. I guess what I'm trying to say is, do you want someone who will put your future child through all the bullshit we went through as kids? My sister stopped before the tree line. It's going to rain. Put up your hood. I allowed Gomez to sniff his way to the trail. My sister stopped beside me, holding both palms up. Not close enough yet. It's not like I forget, but I don't think I remember him like you do. It's all too vivid in your mind. For me, the memories aren't so clear. Like looking through negatives. Even still, I knew she was right. And though she didn't say it, it made sense that she would use the thing we hated to remind me why an abortion would be the sensible choice. However, I'm not sure our mom ever really loved our father the way he expected. And when it came down to it, I loved Robin. Tethered by the illusion of what we could be, perhaps I didn't mention this to my sister now. I didn't share how our last fight ended. She'd reminded me time and again not to let Robin factor into my decision. But I think she knew I couldn't let go, or else she wouldn't resurrect someone she considered dead. And I know this because once she talked about the eulogy she crafted for our father, the day she decided he didn't matter. I couldn't blame her, though I kept in touch with him. The man who raised us was our real dad. What did blood and lineage mean when you could choose your family? Choice. Too many choices and possibilities clouded my mind in much the same way the sky did overhead. It would rain for sure, but would it storm? I could have dealt with a drizzle. Storms were too much. This was why I brought Gomez out of the house and into the quiet and calm on days when Robin tore through our space like a tempest. The residual energy of our fight brought aftershocks like an earthquake. In the days since, he told me how much he loved me, how much he liked Dempsey. It was always another excuse or lie or wish or manipulation. Gomez raced forward, but the squirrel in his sight climbed the tree first. I understood what it felt like to keep running towards something out of reach, and maybe not telling Robin about the next appointment was my way of holding out hope that he would choose us. Did you know butterflies only live for 3 weeks? I tried to keep my voice steady. My sister stopped. All that work for something so fleeting? It's sad. I looked up at the branches overhead, searching for a sign shaped in the leaves, but there was nothing. It's been 3 weeks since I found out, and you're right. I don't want my baby to have a father like that. I can't do this. When the rain fell, it lifted the damp smell of earth from below our feet. Do you want me to go with you? My sister turned to face me. Water dripped down my face, hood left unused between my shoulders. I need to do this on my own. But if you change your mind, I'm here. For whatever you need, I'll always be here. She held my hand, walking beside me through the woods, though the rain persisted. This was more than a metaphorical place filled with felled trees. I'd said the words. My sister heard them because she was right beside me. It was easier to speak it in theory than imagine what it would be like when it happened for real. Suppose it would have been poetic if 3 weeks had passed, but it had only been 2. My mom and sister stood in the driveway at my house, both struggling to ask if I was okay because maybe they knew I wasn't. But I believed I would be. Someday. It was a stretch of time I forgot about through the course of June. Now it was July. A white butterfly flew under the eaves of the porch, landing on my hand. We didn't breathe. The 3 of us gathered in a semicircle, waiting for the creature to fly free. It felt like this was a message from my baby, or maybe just the universe, letting me know it was okay. The guilt still gnawed sometimes, reminding me I could have done it, been a mother. This butterfly didn't move. I imagined the whisper of another butterfly's wings, unleashing the chain of events that would be bound only to memory now. Though delicate, did she know what she destroyed? And where was she now, that butterfly? They only lived 3 weeks. Beauty would always be fragile, I reminded my white butterfly. But we both would go on.
Hello, I'm Laura and I'm going to read my poem Safety Seeking Rituals. It was food before it was fire. Best befores examined before you'd take a bite. You've never had food poisoning. Never will. This morning you reached the end of the path. Reverse direction. Descent was easy, but it consumes energy to climb 4 flights of steps. You're back, telling him it's the being in control that matters. He's telling you, that's funny, I prefer to be controlled. Your new flames necking spirits when he reveals what he means, what he wants, and you do it. He insists it's smoking hot. He cries out in pain, pleasure, screams, inside, outside your head. You're shown videos he's captured, videos he will never share, but he might strike the match at any moment. Everything feels tissue paper fragile, combustible, and oh, what shame. Your mum sits broken in the kitchen, swallowing propranolol, prescribed when the man after your dad left, came back left. You explain you've forgotten something. Again, she sighs, because why aren't you more like your sister, her first from Oxford, top of her class, at the top of the stairs, sockets empty, her termination kept secret between not mothers, your tries to be perfect sister, bled and bled, cried and cried. You there to console her, there. On the floor of your bedroom, the plug lies prongs up. Nothing appears connected, nothing apart from everything. Thank you.
Stereotype, Adrienne Stevenson. I try to please those desperate girls that call on me from their dark corners. I give them silk dresses, turn mice to footmen, pumpkins to coaches. But what do I get in return? No thanks or caresses for a tired old woman who has spent her magic on the ungrateful wretches. No, they run off with the first prince to pick up their dropped handkerchief or lost slipper. I will waste no more time on these girls, but return in my next incarnation as a wicked witch and enjoy myself for a change.
Hi, I'm Nicole Tallman, and this is White Spell. I'm that cat in Constantine, but I'm also human and I'm talking, casting a love spell with broken violins. Crystal smoke stone, I'm a mystic, a sage, a good witch, a lucky 13 wearing a white gown. Isn't a wish a spell? I say, lift the world's sadness. I chant Om Mani Padme Hum. Isn't a prayer a kind of magic? Isn't silence? Isn't the moon?
I'm Suzy Eynon, and this is Pear Rest. Fallen pears dotted the August dry lawn. Daisy counted 10 this time, most with bites taken by neighborhood rabbits or smaller nibbles from the rats. She picked up drop pears every day in the stretch of summer bleeding into fall, each fruit sighing a heavy thump as it hit the crispy grass. She never ate the fruit herself because it was woody, inedible. She'd asked around at farmers markets, and a vendor once told her to refrigerate the crop for weeks before trying to eat them. But she didn't have enough space to chill dozens of pears. She didn't ask for the tree. It was already in the front yard when she moved into the house. The tree itself was afflicted with pear rust, a pervasive fungus of the Pacific Northwest. Daisy came from a desert, and her introduction to the Pacific Northwest included ailments new to her, both in body and all around. Eczema on her hands after handling yard leaves, which left itchy gashes on her palms. All manner of mosses and molds bursting from trees and corners and holes. A green layer on everything until what existed beneath rotted and crumbled. The first time she noticed the rust, she was repulsed. The fungus clung to the tree's leaves and spikes, like a cluster of horns. She'd read that the pear rust also sought host in conifers or junipers, bursting from the leaves of these trees before jumping to a pear tree, just hopping back and forth between hosts, a greedy guest slowly blemishing all surfaces. Daisy began her walk to the pharmacy. She needed to get there today because Petey had taken his last dose this morning, and she'd already postponed this walk by a day because she hadn't felt well. She realized after she pulled the front door shut that she would have to walk at a fast pace to get to the pharmacy before they temporarily closed for lunch. She thought ahead to a scenario in which she arrived just as they pulled the shutters down in front of the register, and she had to wait in a pressed plastic seat until they returned. She tried to walk as fast as she could. Some days she felt her body moving through gelatin, while other days she moved with less effort. Her period had finally arrived after disappearing for 2 months. She was relieved and not when it showed up again. She'd assumed it was menopause come early, which made her feel a sense of loss, of youth, of potential to someday have a child. But she also felt tired and ready to slide into acceptance. Sometimes her lower extremities felt filled with rocks, and that's how she pictured them, as bags filled with pebbles. Today, pain radiated from her low back down the reverse of her legs, so that she felt she expended a lot of effort just to keep her sneakers moving over the pavement. Her right sneaker felt loose so that her foot swam around inside, rubbing and pressing, but she couldn't afford the time to bend over and retie it, so she altered her stride to put less pressure on that foot. The sun emerged from behind the clouds, and sweat threatened to bloom in her armpits and under her breasts, which today weren't contained enough by her gray sports bra. Daisy considered pulling her sweatshirt off, but she didn't have time to stop, and she preferred to sweat under the extra layer in exchange for keeping it on as a buffer between herself and the world. Her discomfort could be measured and categorized, and then ignored accordingly, and the overheated feeling was less a threat than her need to hide herself. She checked her phone for the time. She needed to keep going.
What my mother couldn't teach me. I already said too much, yet I prefer the swish, the snip, sinking sharp teeth to the thin sheaf of each page. Don't leave the house, she reminded, before the days and the honey, the coffee and the plums and the pieces of peppermint gum. And yes, the box of matches also emptied in that time. So I didn't go. Now these paper flowers find a life in champagne flutes, grown from my hands and my time and my inability to inherit my mother's gift for tedium. She was always better at collecting seeds, praying to sky and sun to soak the empty beds and hope for something. Such a belief daunts my days, even here, but perhaps I will unveil my work to the world if my mother refuses an exegesis of every flower she's ever grown, words punctuated and lacking parentage for me. But this is the cost of blooming, of planting yourself out of reach and promising, I'll be good, I'll be better when this ends. For body, for mind. 9. Her fingertip follows a sole stretch of skin, a dip from the pale, once plum, now peach, nesting the rim below her navel. Her index, bit to blood, burrows before pulling back. She can't bring herself to try the cold of cocoa butter, studying the mirror more now to see if she's mourned yet. 8. 10 days pre-pandemic, she put it all on her left wrist. 2 lines bloomed twin scars, one for body, one for mind that took form in the film of reflection, poorly healed and patchy. 7. She grew in a home that sheltered the unborn and prepared her to pick at the leftover deli meat from forgotten lunches, co-parented by the spare rosary next to the table. 6. Her memories of motherhood, defined by the distress of a teen trying their best, medical bills and bike rides, knocks on the master door, never needing to worry for her sake. 5. The women before her would mock such shallow words, nurtured with guilt. Her bones had not earned bliss back, and uptight impulse was no home for new minds. 4. She had the thought before pink plastic, bitter in her grip, and settled on harvesting sanity from a formula of sleeping pills and advice to others, long before she could look them in the eye. It was enough to resemble adult. 3. Forgiveness won't be found in a flush and few hours faced forward from a couch borrowed for the weekend. 2. And relief is a tremor held tight by home, which lies in the palm of a man with 3 months' stubble, morning breath, and a light in his gaze too bright for the sake of sunrise. 1. There's a name in her phone 7 dusks from today, and it's aged since she saved it, filling space, shedding seconds. Former ticks swim to surface, breaking up mind's crusade, roll wrists, crack knuckles, stiff shoulders, release.
Hello, I'm D.W. McKinney, and I will be reading the short story, Trophies. Trophies. The thief flees the homestead with the contents of the woman's bedroom and half of her kitchen. She chases after the thief, but loses him in the woods when he hides in a cave. The thief finds comfort with his stolen possessions. They're his trophies. The more he has, the more he believes he's winning, though what the contest is, he can't say for sure. While the thief waits for the woman to forget that he's taken her rosebush, the knobs from her cabinets, and a case of wine, he converts the cave into a home. He drags in moss-covered logs from the woods and calls them chairs. He hangs silk bedsheets across the cave entrance. Bored, the thief roams the woods and he stumbles upon a black bear bathing in a river. I could use an exotic pet, he says, or a beast to protect my belongings. Hearing this, the bear turns around. Do I know you? It grumbles. I was just admiring your hide, the thief says. I keep a modest hygiene regimen, the bear huffs. You know what they say about cleanliness. It's next to godliness. No, says the bear. It reveals our better natures. Ah, a creature of purpose, a lover of respectable proclivities, will get along well, exclaims the thief. He invites the bear to his cave. He leads it away from a trail, just in case the woman is still searching for him. At the cave, the thief throws a lavish candlelit party. He and the bear eat stale rye bread on the woman's fine china set. The thief opens the case of wine and takes a bottle for himself and one for the bear. They toast to new friendships and reflect on their lives. 3 bottles in, and spittle flies from their mouths as they roar and scream. The thief rips the bedsheets. The bear gnaws on an ottoman tree stump. The sound of the raucous good time echoes through the woods and catches the attention of the determined woman still searching for the thief. When the thief awakens from his drunken stupor, he spies the bear tiptoeing away. "Please don't go," the thief begs. "I was not myself last night," the bear says. "I have responsibilities waiting for me." Then let us create a new memory of more civilized behavior. The thief opens the remaining bottles of wine. He and the bear toast to newer friendships. They toast to better times. They toast to comfort, and they toast to dignity until the bear passes out. The thief eyes the bear. He imagines what it must be like to be such a magnificent creature, to have such luxurious black fur. This too must be a form of winning, he thinks. He shaves the bear and fashions a suit from the fur. Then he lays the woman's velvet robe over the naked beast. "Never let it be said that I took advantage of another," he thinks. At nightfall, the thief slips into the woods. He caresses his fur, admiring its luster, though it is patchy in some spots. He believes that to wear the bear is to be the bear. He is certain that his eyesight is sharper now, his hearing exceptional. The thief chuckles to himself. He is finally the best he will ever be. The thief bends to the ground and walks on all fours. He thinks about the wine-drunk bear and imitates the damp roar that delighted him the night before. It reverberates through the trees, and he is certain the stars shine brighter for him now. The thief arches his back and grumbles. He stomps and scratches the trees. Then he ambles toward the river where he first met the bear. Sitting on a rock, he gazes at the moon and splashes the rushing water. He sees 2 small cubs wandering in a meadow across the river. Their cries for "mama" upset him. He tut-tuts at their squeaking and shakes his head. "It's a shame they have no one to look after them," he says. The thief then strokes the folds of his fur, gets up, and heads home. When he returns to the cave, it is empty, except for the woman awaiting him. She raises a shotgun. "Wait," the thief cries. "I'm not what you think I am." "You're exactly what I think you are," the woman says, "and you'll make a fine trophy for my wall." She aims and shoots. Across the river, a hairless bear does not pause at the sound of gunfire. Its limbs carry candlesticks, chip plates, a half-full bottle of wine. The velvet robe blows open as it reunites with its hungry cubs. That was Trophies. Thank you for listening.
Once heard from a psychic in the years before. Something secret settles gossamer against your ankle. It must be accuracy of divination from a decade ago, softer than the words your mother spoke 6 years yesterday. You looked at a house today with 3 bedrooms, and the space hums like a sepulcher ready to suck everything in with a ping. There is only you. Sprawl in the tall grass outside, hold 2 stones to the skin of your stomach and ask, what now? It was supposed to be the year of the twins, and you find the world begging you to pick apart and reassemble like the bones of birds strung up with silk ties in your grandfather's study. Keep 2 candlesticks lit in front of the window as an imitation. But no, that's not right. Recall the psychic mentioning that what she meant was you must eat 2 cakes to yourself to celebrate empty shells waiting to be filled. No longer fear losing yourself, only the inability to encant the infertile soil beyond the garden's gate to give you milkweed and thistle and time. How much of this belief comes from the curve of the moon in that card you framed by your bedside? It looked full once, and you obsess over the wane of waiting. Uncertainty snatches at you without speaking to the shuddered suffering of being so old in this lifetime, knowing too much of the sick spin from winding up a staircase in the belly of a lighthouse. Better than a whale, someone else might say, noting the creature on the shelf. But you didn't shape it the way you would have liked. It's only an inheritance meant to remind you of your ancestors, acting like a heart could be tossed back out to sea. Don't you see? The world is just the same if you can't replicate, and this is only another year ordinary in its oath to move on without permission. In a few hours, this will be yesterday, and you won't care how this ends.
Sisters in Exile by Betty J. Cotter. The first time Alice slips away, she knows she will pay for it. But as the sun slants into the back windows this July morning, she feels the tug of the ocean. It's barely 8 o'clock. The girls are already on the bus to the day camp in Edgewater. Johnny dozes in his crib, and Jim is going out back to paint a vacant cabin. She waits until he disappears, then runs out through the motel office before someone can stop her. Only after crossing Route 1, walking a block, and slipping beyond a row of gas stations, stores, and restaurants does she slow down. There it looms, right on the water, the shell of a new motel. It will be 32 units, Jim says, nearly twice as large as their pink azalea courts, and it will have a pool. As soon as he heard this, he called up an excavating company and began digging a hole. If we don't have a swimming pool too, we will go out of business, he says. Banging nails, 2 men balance on the rafters. The Surfside Motor Inn, that's the name on the temporary sign, will open in October near Alice's due date. Rubbing out a stitch in her side, she stops to watch the men, shirtless, perched on the roof peak. They are lean and almost black with tan. Though she stands there several minutes watching them jostle beams into place and swing their hammers, they don't look down or wave. Through the next vacant lot, she reaches the beach. Back home in Rhode Island, the soft, sloping dunes give a st sound as you step. The sands here grind beneath your soles like sugar spilled on a hardwood floor. She hurries across their wide expanse to the waves. As far as the eye can see, from the shore to the sea to the horizon, all is flat. How long has it been since her feet touched Rhode Island sand? Almost a year, when Lenore married. And how much has changed in those 12 months? Daddy dropping dead in the potato fields. Mother leaving the farm, abandoning it really, the way one might ditch a car whose engine has stopped running. Last summer, Alice took for granted they would return every year with the children. But Jim has no interest in going home. And the farm is vacant, the house locked up. Mother has bought a new house in town with Daddy's life insurance. And here Alice is pregnant again, just 3 months after Johnny's birth last October. 7 months along now, she feels ill almost constantly. That shift when morning sickness fades and a glorious feeling of well-being descends hasn't happened this time. Instead, she dizzies easily and can hardly stomach more than a few bites. It shouldn't be this way. Alice reaches the water's edge. The waves roar and retreat, drowning out the carpenter's hammers. How wonderful to be here on the beach alone. For a moment, she can almost pretend to be on the rocky edge of Watch Hill, watching the breakers foam against the endless spit of Napatree Point. She can forget the motel, Jim's ill humor, the children's incessant demands. No one is checking in or checking out or complaining that a room isn't clean or that the towels are too thin. Out of reach of the children, particularly Johnny, who seems to need her every minute, not like the girls at all. She leans against a piling, an old telephone pole someone has buried in the sand, and clasps her hands across her belly. She cannot wait to be rid of this baby. Yes, that is how she thinks of it. That moment of expulsion, that final push when all you can think is, get out of me. She told Jim she didn't want any more children. The girls, now 5 and 7, just reached a manageable age when Johnny was born. They must do something, be more careful. He refuses to her safety, and he wouldn't let her use a diaphragm. She visited a doctor and got one anyway, but could never be sure she was using it correctly. Well, now she knows. She is exiled to Florida, and in Florida she will stay. Like a flamingo, Alice raises one foot up and tucks it behind the other knee. She's becoming one, a fat pink body with 2 stick legs, just a plastic lawn ornament, someone's decoration, forever trapped in a place where she doesn't belong. While the home she loves, the farm, her sisters, her mother, all have vanished far over the blue horizon.
Hello, my name is JoAnn Koozer. I will be reading Brushstrokes on Canvas. Brushstrokes on Canvas. Old woman feels the evening pull, like the ebb tide. She slowly drifts to her west window, anticipating a broad splash of sunset. A day yawns. Sunrays and drifting particles concoct one last batch of taffy. Yellows and reds, blues, kneaded and pulled across the dimming western sky, stretched and braided. Purples emerge, chase orange. Each one glows and glances off long yellow streaks. Pink edges try to soften red's dominance in the final dip to this day's dance. 36,135 unique sunsets chasing sunrises she has witnessed. At 99, ensconced in comfortable rooms, she and I, now the parent, reminisce, play skip-bo or dominoes, repeat every family story, laugh at the same old chestnuts, including ourselves, fallen from the same sappy tree. Unsteady, she bumps, bops, pokes, leans a little too hard against once friendly furniture. Elbows jab, knuckles become knotty, sore knockers as she slow strolls her rooms, where she manages to mash all the sharp notes. Low table corners, desk chairs refusing to seat her, a toilet lid with snapping mouth, a fingernail idly scratching a small itch. Her once lovely, supple skin now a modeling of tiny ruptures, pushing her life stream outside normal boundaries. Now when did I do that? She points and queries. We smile and gaze, admire together odd-shaped smears, deep crimson bruising that blurs to yellow. Sometimes we give names, like children pointing out skin clouds. Lincoln in silhouette in the center of her right calf, this month's favorite. I calm my eyes and determine these too shall be absorbed, this surface suffering, these pocks and pools of participation, miniature sunsets adorning her aging canvas.
Once she floats on stone. She was hardened by the scratch of Sunday, through chain link to cemetery, stumbling silent in parallel spirals while wind showered lilac on slate. She'd only known grief in the context of life, the purpose, the path, then flood washed courage clean from chest, flushing soil she'd once matted flat. Faith fell finite to fortune, fable faded to fate, and loss rode tide so high her home began to rot. What stood sailed off so swift she couldn't wish it well. At once she knew the sound of morning and all its waves and whirls. She'd simulate sleep with prose and piano while one dose, daily, before bed, shrunk meaning microscopic. No one grabbed a paddle once she sank to starting over. Alone, she learned to float, then kick, then crawl to open shore. She used to swim to strangers. Someday she will again. I hope you enjoyed some of the many beautiful writings that were included in the Elpis Pages. This book is still available for purchase, and I will have all the applicable links in the description box below. Whether you love poetry, short stories, flash fiction, essays, novel excerpts, there's something in here for every reader, and I hope you will help us support the Planned Parenthood Action Fund and all the self-identifying women who had the courage and bravery to share their words with the world. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, no matter where the day takes you, dream big.